Geographical farming may be foundational to real estate, but luxury farming, that's a whole different deal. We're going to talk about exactly what the process is with Jason Gruner today. Jason, this is going to be fun for me because I love hearing the process.
Sure.
And then seeing what's happening in the midst of all that you're doing. So we're going to talk about luxury farming today and the things that you've done. One of the things that's interesting to me is obviously you have the process in place beforehand. I think some people, the mistake they make is they don't spend the time on the front end to make sure they're in the right place or have the process in place that when the leads come, they're ready to execute on those. So let's start at the beginning. What was it that you did when you were first trying to choose a specific area? Is there something that you looked at?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a little bit different than most agents because I want to figure out how can I get a seller to call me. That's the end all goal. I don't want to cold call.
Right.
I don't even really want to call someone who's requested a market report right away because I feel like I'm talking to a stranger. I want that person to call me. So in my mind, I need to add value first. And so when I'm looking at a spot, I need to pick an area that makes sense. I run it through, I think it's 5 criteria that I go through. Minimum $10 million in volume trailing 12 months. Mm-hmm. I need a turnover of at least 6%. Mm-hmm. It's an area that I want to work in. And it's an area that I'm going to get excited about. So that's just 4 reasons.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing for me. And then I always look to see if there's a dominant agent. But spoiler alert, there's never a dominant agent. True. So I own a print shop. And so agents come to me and like, hey, I want to farm an area. I'm worried because this person really I was like, let's look at the numbers. I've looked at 400 different neighborhoods. I've never found an agent that does more than 25%. It's extremely rare. Everybody thinks there's one, but there never is. So that's like the 5th one. But so those are the biggest things for me. There has to be enough volume there. There needs to be enough turnover there. It needs to be somewhere that I want to work and that I get excited about.
Yeah.
So when I did that for me in South Nashville, I knew I wanted to target luxury. So there are 4 big areas of South Nashville near where I live. I live in one of them. It's Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, and 12 South. Mm-hmm. Those are all within a 3-mile radius of my home. There's 1.1 billion sold trailing 12 months. Now it's big. It's 13,000 homes. Right. But the turnover was over 6%, and the average deal was $1.25 million. Mm-hmm. So those all lined up and make sense. Now, it's a big bite to chew off because it's 12,500 homes. But before I did this, obviously I talked to you a year ago before I actually implemented anything. And I talked to a bunch of guys who were like geo farm guys. Mm-hmm. And I said, if you could do it again, what would you do differently? To a T, everyone said I would have gone bigger earlier. Mm-hmm. I started with one little one. And then after I got some listings a year later, if I know what I knew then, I would have started much bigger at the beginning. So I was like, all right, well, let's not make that mistake. Let's just do this entire area.
Right. So let's talk about what that looks like as far as farming to that group.
Yep.
Because we're talking about geo. Obviously, this involves print. This involves video. This involves different things. What does the typical monthly output look to add value to those folks?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I do that I committed to is I wanted something that was easy in terms of once I've set it up once, it's easy to replicate every month. Mm-hmm. So the first of the month, I send a big yellow postcard. Dean Jackson came up with this, and it's the market report for that area. Mm-hmm. So it's like the Oak Hill Homes Price Report for October 2022. If you're curious what homes are selling for in Oak Hill, we've put together a free report that will show every home sold over the last 12 months. We also include all active and pending deals. Mm-hmm. You can download this for free at oakhillhomesreport.com, and we put a little QR code. Mm-hmm. We do it's bright yellow, 6x12 postcard. It has a picture of the report on it, and you flip it over, and it's basically the same copy. And we just try to get them to go to that website. Then it's a simple landing page that we build that is stupid simple. Name, email, address, phone number, and they submit from there. And so I send that out the first of the month. We typically get about a 1% response rate on that.
Right. Yeah.
And then we mail a big, fancy, it's 11 by 17, stapled down the middle, CMA report for that area. So here's the October Oak Hill Homes Price Report. Picture on the front of it, and it's got a letter from me just kind of explaining what happened the last 30 days, or telling a recent success story, or telling a story in the market of like, oh, this development's going on over here. Here's how it's going to affect you. We are seeing more, as we're transitioning in October 2022, we are seeing more inventory on the market. It just means it's going to be more competitive. However, we're seeing prices hold.
Right.
And the ones that are overpriced sit, and the guys that price strategically and market correctly are still selling very, very quickly. Just whatever that is, just that opening one. And then I just do a basic CMA. Here's what sold the last 30 days. Here's what's currently on the market. And then we've actually partnered with our lender to do the middle spread on it. So he helps share the cost of those reports, which is obviously great.
Absolutely. So that's month one.
Yep.
Is that every month that is? Every single month?
Every month.
Okay,
I'll
great.
commit to that until I quit doing real estate.
Okay, great. So
Just
it's every month it comes just like that.
Yep.
The repetition of it, and it's just, they see the same thing.
100%. They see that same postcard every month, the first of the month, and if they've requested the report, they get that report every month.
Right.
When I go to a listing appointment, they usually set down a stack of 6, 8, 10 reports of like, okay, we get all your reports. We know what's going on. How are we going to sell this house?
Right. It's great.
It's just something, and putting something physical in their hands on a consistent basis is something almost no one does. Everybody sends a postcard when they sell a house, or they try it out for a week, or they send it to their personal network and sphere. But most people don't consistently do it to a farm. And it just builds and builds and builds, and it snowballs and snowballs and snowballs. And I just think the physical component of sending physical mail to someone is a huge, huge opportunity.
I would agree. So is that the extent of all the mailings that you're doing, or are there different mailers that you add in there?
So if I take a listing or I have a good success story, I will send that postcard to that target area. So if I do it outside of the area, it doesn't quite hit as well. Like, I sold this house down in Franklin. They don't really care. But if I sell one in Oak Hill, it's like, hey, I just put this home, your neighbor's home, under contract. That captures their attention. I know they're going to read it. They're going to read the story. I'll put a link to a video about it. So again, just so we can cookie them and capture their info and start following them around digitally after we've captured them through the direct mail. Obviously, when they get the postcard, they go to that Oak Hill Homes report. We tag them. We tag them with a Facebook tag and the Google tag. So then we're following them around. So the next time they go to YouTube, there's that guy who sends all the postcards talking about some lake house, or talking about why we should try to sell our home the first weekend, or talking whatever it might be. You just have that opportunity to be in front of those people on a consistent basis digitally, and really achieve that omnipresent feel.
Yeah. So we talked about the direct mail portion. What are some other things that you're doing, obviously digitally, and some of those things?
Sure. So I will film a market report where I just basically read that first letter. I'll do it in a vertical video format, so we can do it on short form video, which is Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and LinkedIn. And then I'll usually just do a normal horizontal video one that we'll do just kind of a little bit more in depth, 2 to 3 minutes long. Here's what's going on in Oak Hill. We saw 7 homes sell. This one went for 6.5, whatever it is, and just kind of go into a little bit more depth. We'll email those videos to anyone who's ever responded. I'll obviously post them on all the platforms. You can't get as granular like you used to be able to say, like, do this 1 mile radius of just people in Oak Hill. So you have to spread it around a little more. But it's just putting that video out there, and the call to action on all those. If you'd like to download the free report, I can send you a copy. Just go to oakhillhomesreport.com. So it's just another touch where you're getting in front of those folks. In addition to the postcard, they're seeing it. Because again, someone who goes to Oak Hill Homes Report and gives you their name, email, phone number, like, that's a real lead. Even if it's a buyer lead and they just want to know what's going on, it's not just they clicked one button and you got their name and email. There's intent there for that human who went there to that website and gave you all their info.
Yeah. So are you promoting any of those? Like, we mentioned the video portion. Are you boosting some of those?
100%.
And how does that look? Are you targeting just that specific area, or is it kind of a little more generic?
So on YouTube, you can go down to a little bit smaller area, but they flag it a lot just because it's housing. So they're going to have those restrictions. I have faith in the algorithm that if I do a 15-mile radius for Facebook, and it says, attention Oak Hill homes owners in the copy, the only people who are really going to respond to that and they'll eventually show it to are the people who are either interested in moving to Oak Hill or live in Oak Hill. So again, for $50 or $100, you're showing this video to a couple thousand people, and we always get leads, because we can track it all. We always get leads from the digital side as well as the postcards. And again, once you've cookied them and you can follow them around, it's just a really effective way to stay in front of them.
Yeah, you know what I love too is you're 8 months into this process with this. So let's talk about some of those things that surprised you, maybe, good and bad. Maybe some things that you wish you would have known when you started that you're doing now.
If I could do it over again, I probably would have done half the size that I would have done, and I would have done 12 postcards for the first 12 weeks. I just think just that consistency of that first week, after 12 weeks, it's like, all right, this guy knows Oak Hill or Green Hills or whatever. And it gives you the probability of a quick win faster, which is good. So any agent that wants to do farming, I would strongly recommend 12 postcards the first 12 weeks. For me, this is a 2-decade deal for me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 40. I will probably work the next 2 decades. So I will let's spread a little bit wider, test a couple different areas. I'll do one a month for now, but you know, potentially scale up once we have it. So that would be the biggest thing on the postcard side of it. Surprising wise, it has been kind of what I expected. You see a 0.5% to 1.5% response rate, and it varies. So it averages right about 1%. Of those 12,500 after 7 mailings, I have it's 450 people have responded. So it's right in line with where I want to be. Right. And again, I'm at a luxury price point, so it's going to be a little bit lower. Right. Which is natural. I mean, you're just not going to, the guy living in an $8 million house doesn't flip through the postcards that he gets mailed. I mean, a lot, they all do eventually. Right. Yeah. So it's going to be the 6th one or 7th one versus someone who's in a transitioning neighborhood where they know they're going to be there 3 to 5 years, stuff catches their eye more. You will get a higher response rate at a lower price point. But again, I'm building something for it's a 2-decade plan.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk about this because listen, a lot of people are listening to this. This sounds great, but a lot of times it's that one success story that I remember. We talked about the power of story before. Let's talk about, was there one that just really stood out that where they've been in the process and it just...
I mean, there's you can't explain, like when someone calls you that it's a complete stranger. I've mailed pieces of cardboard and pieces of paper to, and they say, I understand you're the expert for my area. Can you come talk to me about listing my house? It's like, that's such a different experience than any sort of prospecting, any sort of lead you could ever get. It's better than a referral.
Right.
Because like these people are already pre-sold. Like a referral is like, hey, my buddy used you. Can you come talk to me about it? This is like, okay, you're the guy just because you've sent me these messages. So when you get a call like that, I mean, it's just it flips the script and like you're consulting with these people on how you're going to sell the home. So that's been great. The other one is, so what we do is the other thing we'll do, the only thing I'll do outside of an email once a month, a report once a month, and then the postcards is if I have an active buyer, I'll find homes that line up that have responded and requested the report. And so I don't really enjoy working with buyers a whole lot. Right. I'll do it if they're very specific on what they want. So the perfect buyer for me is either someone who knows what street they want to live on or a builder developer. So I reached out to a couple of the high-end builders in Nashville. I was like, hey, what do you guys want? They're like, find me a lot in this area. I will write a check for it. It's like, okay, I have a list of a bunch of people here who might want to sell. And so send them an email. It's like, hey, I've got a client who's looking for something in 12 South. I remember you requested the report. Guy emails me back. He's like, if you give me this number, I'll do it. Call the builder. It's like, hey, will you do this? He's like, yes. Perfect. I'll close in 30 days.
That's great.
Well, this was for 1.15. Right. He's going to tear it down. He's going to build a duplex for 4.8 and list it with me.
Yeah. So it's that process of just going through that. Consistency, seeing those things happen. Jason, this is really good stuff. Listen, listen. If you're listening to this, be encouraged. It is the consistency. Some people, like you said, want the first original win. And listen, it happens, but understand the process, trust the process, do the consistency, and then Jason can attest, you're going to see the results. I hope this has been helpful, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching the video. I specifically chose the video below for you because it builds on the one you just watched. I hope it's helpful, and I'll talk to you soon.